What if I tell you that I am amazing at playing football? You will probably want to know if I am telling the truth, so I sent you a video doing stunts with the ball. You are still not convinced, so you decide to invite me to a football match, just to discover that I suck at football and that I can do even 10% of the tricks that I showed you in the video. And the most impressive fact of all this situation is that I was not lying. I really performed all those tricks in the video. Weird, isn't it? There is a clear dissonance there between what I can do when recording a video and when I'm actually playing. This is the same dissonance that players experience when the characters are essentially different in the cutscenes than in the gameplay experience. This is what we call Ludonarrative Dissonance. Ludonarrative Dissonance is generated when the mechanics are not in line with the narrative of the game, which involves the mission design, the characters' interaction and possible actions inside the game, and their psychological traits. Today, we are going to analyze how the designers of GTA 5 used unique mission design and distinctive characters in order to influence player decisions and avoid ludonarrative dissonance, taking into account that this is a game that offers hundreds, if not thousands, of different things to do, which opens the door to massive amounts of ludonarrative dissonance. If you have been living under a rock in the last few years, GTA 5 is the fifth installment of the Grand Theft Auto series, apart, obviously, from all the DLCs. It was the first GTA to have multiple playable characters: Michael, Franklin, and Trevor. And unlike many other games, the player can change characters at almost any time, either you are wandering on the game world or if you are in a mission with multiple of the playable characters. Now, all characters are composed essentially of the same mechanics. They can drive, shoot, jump, etc. But their differences are beyond just the mechanical side. And talking about the game mechanics, GTA 5, as many other current games, included an RPG-style character skill points, with each character having a set of points distributed into 6 skills that make them better at driving, shooting, and so. In reality though, the difference is pretty insignificant, and it's not disruptive at all. For example, you will not change to Michael just to shoot, because it is fun to shoot with any character, the same as driving and with the other main mechanics. So if in terms of mechanics, GTA 5 was not able to avoid ludonarrative dissonance, how did they do it? Regarding their psychological traits, each character is very distinctive, and this is reinforced through the game using cutscenes and unique missions. For example, when you change to Trevor, you can see him engaging in a variety of antisocial behaviors, while Michael is usually at his house or in his car complaining about something. Now, to remove the elephant in the room right now, I will briefly deal with each character's psychological traits, states, and mental illnesses. Although I am not an expert, in many of the readings while making this video, people considered Trevor a psychopath, and I think this is wrong for one main reason. Usually, psychopaths are highly functional and not so prone to anger as sociopaths, which I think that Trevor is not either. I think that Trevor is represented as a person with antisocial personality disorder that usually coexists with many other conditions, coherent with Trevor's behavior, and that could explain why he's seen in the cutscene throwing people out of bridges, harassing women, but also his loyalty and affection for his soul and his new gang. Michael is usually considered a narcissistic, and I think that is right, combined also with a nihilist mentality. Franklin is a complicated case, because he doesn't show so much of his personality traits through the game. But considering all, I think that Franklin is a psychopath, because of his lack of remorse in killing people for his own benefit and for his eagerness to climb on the social ladder at any cost, while maintaining a close bond with a small bunch of people or organizations, in this case Lamar, Tonya, and the gang formed by the three main characters. These traits are accentuated by each character's personalized missions. For example, most of Trevor's missions consist of property damage or killing, torturing people, and even a set of missions called Rampage that consist basically of killing a determined number of people in a set time. Franklin's missions consist of doing errands for other people, either for the sake of helping, like Tonya's missions, or for money, like Lester's missions. Finally, Michael is the character with less unique missions, in part because Michael is considered the main character, so most of the main missions are linked to Michael. So, are these psychological differences enough to avoid ludonarrative dissonance? I will say that the combination of psychological traits and the mission design is what really avoids the ludonarrative dissonance, without having to rely on limiting the mechanics of each character or create three completely different characters. Because the players are presented with cutscenes of Trevor engaging in antisocial behaviors and, for example, with Rampage missions, it is more plausible that they wreak havoc using Trevor and change to Michael when they want to advance the main story. This is a very important point, because each character represents the three most common types of GTA players. Franklin is the novice that will take any little mission just to get a better grasp of the game world. Michael represents the player that is interested in the development of the story, and Trevor is the player that when bored buys all the guns possible and destroys everything just because the game gives such possibility. Representing the main player's playstyle using these characters increases the player's playtime, because it solves a problem in past installments of the game and in many action-oriented games, when players wanted just to go around the city and do chaotic things, but in the end that totally contradicted the backstory of the character, so the ludonarrative dissonance ended up taking away the engagement from the player. So, how can we come up with a framework to avoid ludonarrative dissonance by influencing players' decisions instead of forcing them with disruptive mechanics or present them with cutscenes that totally contradicts their previous 20 hours of gameplay? We can use a 3-point framework that focuses on characters' personality, mission design, and game mechanics constraints to avoid ludonarrative dissonance. First point: create characters with strong personalities. And this includes even non-human characters. For example, in Thomas Was Alone, characters are just simple geometrical shapes, but depending on their relative size, width, and height, they represent a different personality, and therefore they move and jump based on this attribute personality. Also, visually communicate the personality of your characters and their state changes. For example, Trevor looks dirty and never changed clothes, while Michael started dressed as a typical early retiree, living a relaxed life, while later is seen dressing better clothes while he starts to live his life to the limit again by committing crimes. Second, align the mission design with the personality of your characters. If you try to do it the other way around, you can contradict the whole character's story and personality. Uncharted's Nathan Drake is one of the most cited cases of ludonarrative dissonance because of the charming, intelligently curious, and almost goofy personality of the main character in the cutscenes, while the game consists mostly on killing and even the rewards are based on weapon proficiency. In psychology and business terms, this is called Folly AB, when a company rewards a worker for an outcome A when they really want the outcome B. If you reward your players, they will feel enticed to keep doing the things that reward them. So, be mindful not only that the mission design is aligned with your character's personality, but also the rewards. Finally, use constraints wisely. GTA 5 is one of the biggest games in terms of map size and possibilities for players. You can use travel using cars, planes, helicopters, aquatic bikes. You can buy a set of different commerce that will give you extra missions and weekly incomes. You can invest, read online blogs, call people using your phone, parachute, and even take a cable car. I mean, that's more things that I have done in my entire life, especially for calling people. The solution of having 3 characters works perfectly for GTA, because with such extended limits, the designers had to find a way to keep players engaged in all the different ways of playing that the game offers. But for your game, maybe it's different. You can use constraints to avoid the player taking certain actions. Just mind the fact that you will have to give a plausible explanation to why that action is prohibited, or if not possible, you will have to craft a gameplay experience that is robust enough to donate that mechanic. For example, in many action-oriented games, your character can't jump when it clearly has working knees. For example, in Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, you can jump, but the other mechanics like the combat, the exploration, and the representation of the psychosis works beautifully. So jumping doesn't add anything to the combination of mechanics. Digging deeper, why does Senua can't jump? Imagine you go through hell, fighting gods and monsters to save your loved one, and you go here and there jumping, just because you move faster jumping or rolling than running. That could be a big source of ludonarrative dissonance. Also, you can dynamically lose constraints, adding new mechanics as the player becomes increasingly familiar with the system of the game, a topic that I discussed in the video that will appear up there in the card. In summary, craft strong, notorious personalities for your character that are represented not only by the mechanics but also in the missions and rewards. Finally, use constraints wisely. You could do this by understanding what your players want from your game and creating a robust set of interconnections that don't let the player ask, how is possible that my character can jump to that 50 cm height box if minutes ago I survived 50 bullets without even a limp? And that's all for this video. I hope this video helps you in your current and future game designs. Have a great day.